Hi, welcome to Adventures with Reid and Tiff. My name is Reid, and today I'm going to talk about winter camping, but specifically ideas on how to plan your first winter backpacking experience. I love going out in the winter. I find that the lack of people on trails, the snow covering of the forest, the animals that I see, the peacefulness is just so worth it, and I look forward to it every year. Now that the weather is starting to get colder, I'm starting to think about it again and figured that I'd put out this video to help people that are just getting started in winter camping. It is a pretty daunting thing to go on your first winter camping trip because you should be considering all of the dangers that are related to winter camping. Not that you shouldn't go, but the preparation levels for a winter camping trip should be a lot more than the preparation for a 3-season trip. All the same things in terms of telling people where you're going, having a way to contact people in the case of emergency or emergency services, having enough food, having enough water, having the right gear. All the things that you would do for 3-season is still important, but with that added extra of making sure that you are going to stay warm enough, you are going to stay dry enough, and you're going to have a safe time. This video alone should not be all that you're using to plan your trip. This is just a number of ideas of how to safely plan your first trip, and definitely more research is necessary, whether it's watching other YouTube videos, talking to people who have experienced winter camping. Make sure that you have a good idea of the conditions you're going to be in, as well as sort of the necessity gear items that you need to take. So the first thing, if you are going into the backcountry for your first trip, I would only do that if you're going with someone that has experienced winter camping already and that is going to teach you everything they know during that trip and beforehand in terms of helping you pack properly. If you don't have the ability to go with someone that knows what they're doing in the backcountry in the winter, my suggestion would be to do a trial camping trip. And the trial camping trip would be to go somewhere that you can still do all the same things that you would in the backcountry, but with a quick and easy exit or a quick and easy way to get dry and warm. So a great example, I took a bunch of friends for their first winter experience to a front country camping site, so a car camping site. And that was good because if anyone got really cold, there was a warming station. There was also the vehicles that could be turned on and warmed up that way. So even though I do have experience with this, I didn't want to take a bunch of people into the backcountry to start off with in case they decided that winter camping wasn't for them. And that's okay. If the first experience is not great and you decide that you don't like sleeping outside in 0-degree or freezing temperatures or lower, that probably means that you're saner than I am, but I, for whatever reason, love going out in these situations. How are you going to be able to make your front country camping experience mimic a backcountry experience? Choose somewhere you can go that has the trail system available, that you can do that kind of mileage with the type of personal transportation to get you where you want to go. And do that. So during the day, if you would normally hike in 10 kilometers or 6 miles, because in the winter you have a lot less daylight time, so you will want to reduce your amount of traveling. But if that's what you would normally do, then during the day, take a loaded up pack and do that hiking, do that snowshoeing, do that skiing. And this is critical because if you don't, you aren't going to realize just how much sweat and body heat gets produced with that kind of exertion. And be bold, start cold, which is one of the sayings that you'll hear in all of the YouTube videos. I don't know who said it first because it is in all of them. But that saying is important because you will need to start learning about, how little clothing, gear can you be wearing in order to still be warm when you're hiking, as well as once you've stopped hiking, what layers do you need to put back on in order to keep yourself warm. So doing similar things is very important. The other part of it is water. So if you expect for your backcountry trips that you're going to be able to find flowing water, creeks, brooks, rivers, in order to get water from and then boil for your meals, or for hot drinks, or for filling up an Nalgene at night, then that's what you're going to want to do for your front country experience. If you think you're going to be having to melt snow, that is also what you should be doing. And I would say, regardless, attempting to melt snow, even if you don't think you'd ever need to do it, is very useful because it is excruciating long to actually melt enough snow to get the water that you need. For a liter of water, you might be using and melting 10 liters in volume worth of snow, or it could be 15 or 20, depending on how packed it is, in order to get that same liter. And you might be toiling at it for 20-30 minutes with your fuel running. So doing that's important so that you experience it, but also so that you can see how much fuel gets consumed. And by going to somewhere that you can bring your car, you can bring a lot of canisters or liquid fuel, whatever you're planning to use and burn, so that you have enough. But if you do a similar length trip with the same type of eating, the same type of boiling of water, then at least you'll have a good idea of how much fuel you need when you go into the backcountry. But whatever that amount is, add more. Having quite a bit more than you need is important, and you're going to go through a lot of fuel. So I take much more now than I did originally, because I actually ran out of fuel on a winter camping trip, luckily right at the end. But it could have been a lot worse if it was earlier, because that trip was exclusively melting snow, whereas my other trips were a mixture of flowing water and snow, which meant that I didn't know that I needed as much fuel as I actually needed. So by being somewhere that you can get to your vehicle or get to somewhere warm and dry, it allows you to make your mistakes safely. And making mistakes is all part of the backcountry camping experience and life in general. But being able to make it safely is really important so that you get back out there and there's no permanent damage, there's no need for SOS calls or anything like that. There are a few things that you could try before going out that would be useful, but you definitely would learn it on the trip. But that would be things like foods. Looking for foods that are low in water usage to bring with you from the dehydrated backpacking meals will help reduce the amount of water that you need to boil and to melt snow potentially. Bringing foods like that are easy to eat when they're cold. So for example, if you bring a Cliff Bar, although you can eat it when it's cold, it's going to be very hard, very difficult to eat. If you're just looking for some sort of calories and saltiness, chips don't really make a difference between frozen or not frozen. So one of the things that was really interesting on a video by Kane Goes Outdoors is that he takes everything that he's planning on bringing food-wise that he's never brought on a winter camping trip and puts it in his freezer for a while to make sure it's completely frozen, and then tries eating it. And if it's not good for eating, then he's not going to bring it. And that's something that I do as well now. But there's a few other reasons that going to either a very easy backcountry experience or a front country experience is useful, and that is related to gear. Winter camping gear is phenomenally expensive. You don't necessarily need all of it depending on what conditions you're going into, and you definitely can reduce that further by being somewhere that you can get out of safely if a gear item fails, for example. So I'm not saying go out with a summer sleeping bag, but I'm saying that, there's a potential that your 3-season tent, if it's a good quality tent and you don't have a huge amount of snowfall in the forecast, that you're going to be just fine with it. I've done a lot of camping with 3-season tents. I've also used 4-season tents. Um, but I wouldn't go and make that jump to buy a new tent before you know that you like winter camping and you've had an experience in it. The other thing is you can find an outfitter. Yes, you can definitely take the gear from an outfitter into the backcountry, but outfitter gear is generally heavy duty, which the emphasis on heavy because it needs to be used frequently throughout the year or throughout the years. And so the stuff that they buy is generally quite bulky, quite heavy, but very good quality gear. So if you're somewhere that you're not too worried about how far you need to hike with it or ski with it, then you can rent gear so that you don't need to expend the money right away to buy gear. And then the other thing is, assuming that you are coming from the same climate that you're planning to camp in, or at least close to it, you likely already have a lot of winter gear. It might not be gear that is suited for backpacking because it might not be the right layering system. It might not be as light as you would want it to be. But if you do other outside sports like skiing, like just general hiking, things like that, or just living in a cold climate, you probably have gear that you can use for your clothing that you don't necessarily need to spend lots of money up front. But for when you do go into the backcountry, watch videos where you see the different layering systems that are used for backpacking in order to stay dry. And that would be something to practice as well when you are doing your hike. Make sure that you are trying to take off layers as quickly as possible to stay as dry as possible. You are going to sweat, it's unavoidable. But if you sweat a lot in the winter, then your clothing is wet and it's harder to stay warm and you might put yourself into a dangerous situation. Whereas when you're doing a trial, you can have enough clothing around that, if you get soaked, you can just change and be in dry clothing again. And you are going to find that some of the gear that you have does not work. It might not work in the conditions you're going out in. So being able to have that happen and, revise for the next time you go, which will likely be your actual first time in the backcountry, is useful as well. The things that you might want to consider is related to what you're going to bring for your sleep system. I did another video about that. What you're going to bring for your stove and for your water purification. I will be putting out a video on that as well. Those are kind of the first important things, but everything is important, but doing this trial allows you to learn what's most important for you. I hope this helps. I hope that this allows you to have a fantastic first experience winter camping. Pack warmly, pack a lot of fuel, and just enjoy yourself. It is such a special experience, and by doing this, you can do it with a little bit less anxiety involved and a little bit more safety by planning a trial trip. And I hope that everything goes great and that whatever little lessons you learn on this one, you can put onto your next one. If you've watched this far, please subscribe and like this video. We are trying to build this channel to put out more content like this. And until next time, thank you for watching.